In the stillness of an ordinary night, a man named John discovered an unsettling truth about his own hands. As the clock struck midnight, nestled in the silence of his lonely apartment, John sat, his palms tingling with an unfamiliar sensation. A cold shiver ran down his spine as he observed his fingers twitch, dance, and jerk in an eerie ballet of their own accord. The dimly lit room echoed with the steady tick-tock of the clock, the only witness to this bizarre spectacle. The air grew thicker, the silence deafening. John's breath hitched as his pulse quickened, his eyes glued to the spectacle of his own hands. They moved with a mind of their own, independent of his will, unpredictable and uncontrollable. A sense of dread washed over him, his heart pounding against his ribcage like a trapped bird, desperate to escape. As the night grew darker, so did the fear in John's heart, realizing he was a prisoner within his own body. John's hands had now taken a life of their own, moving in grotesque ways, performing actions he had no control over. These were not the hands he had known all his life. These were sinister, unholy puppets, dancing to a tune he could neither hear nor understand. It began subtly, a twitch here, a spasm there. John dismissed it as fatigue, a result of long hours spent at his keyboard. But then the incidents started becoming more frequent, more terrifying. His fingers would curl into claws, scratching his face till blood was drawn. His palm would suddenly slam into the wall, the force enough to fracture bones. His hands, once his trusted tools, started causing harm to not just him, but to those around him. A friendly handshake turned into a bone-crushing grip. A gentle pat on the back morphed into a violent shove. Friends distanced themselves, family members watched him warily. John was alone, trapped in a nightmare he could not wake from. His days were filled with fear, his nights with dread. Every object he touched was a potential weapon, every action a potential disaster. His hands, once a source of pride, had turned into instruments of horror. He sought help from doctors, from priests, from anyone who would listen, but his hands refused to cooperate, lashing out violently at anyone who tried to restrain them. The fear in people's eyes mirrored his own. He was a prisoner in his own body, his hands the cruel jailers. His life became a gruesome spectacle, a chilling tale of a man betrayed by his own body. The whispers followed him everywhere, the fear was palpable. His once ordinary hands now held an extraordinary power, a power that was slowly but surely driving him to the edge. His hands, once a trusted part of him, had now become his worst nightmare. Trapped in a terrifying reality, John was desperate for an escape from the horror that his life had become. Each day was a relentless battle, a struggle to regain control over his own hands, those treacherous appendages that moved with a will of their own. His attempts to tame them were futile, like trying to catch smoke with a net. His life, once filled with simple pleasures and routines, was now a chilling saga of fear and desperation. His hands, once his trusted tools, were now his worst enemies. They danced to a tune only they could hear, a macabre ballet of chaos and destruction. They mocked him with their independence, turning against their master in an act of ultimate betrayal. Once, they had held his coffee cup, turned the pages of his beloved books, and caressed the face of his loved ones. Now, they were wild and uncontrolled, wreaking havoc in his life. His desperation grew with each passing day as if fed by the very fear that consumed him. He tried to bind them, to confine them, but they fought back with a ferocity that was both shocking and terrifying. They were no longer a part of him, but rather, he was a prisoner of them. As the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, John's life spiraled into an abyss of despair and terror. His once vibrant eyes now mirrored the horror of his existence. His laughter was replaced by silent screams, his dreams by nightmares. And then, one fateful day, his hands turned against him in the most tragic way possible. In a final act of rebellion, they took his life, silencing his screams forever. It was a chilling end to a life that had become a living nightmare. In the end, John's life was taken. Not by a monstrous creature or a supernatural entity, but by his own hands, the tools he once used to shape his world. John's story serves as a chilling reminder of the horrors that can lurk within us. A man, once ordinary, became a puppet to his own hands, an unwilling participant in a macabre dance of death. The terror lay not in external monsters, but within his very flesh and bone. His tragic end, a grim crescendo to a symphony of dread, leaves us with a bone-chilling echo. In the end, John's tale is a haunting testament to the horrors that can unfold when our own bodies betray us.